Welcome to a community built of tomorrow's business leaders. Hey guys, I'm William Freitas, and this is the Socius Podcast. Socius, welcome back to another episode. Today we've got Jim Fairhall-Dickie. Jim,
hey, how you going, Will? Good to see you.
Great to have you, mate. Jim's from Aureus Financial.
Aureus Financial, correct. Yep.
Tell us a little bit about Aureus Financial. Tell us about your background. Naturally, mate, as you've probably heard a few of these podcasts before, we love to hear about the founder's journey. I love to hear about your background. And you've got a fantastic background, a successful business for one, but a business that's had a fantastic journey as well. So we'd love to hear more. Tell us a little bit about your background.
So Aureus Financial is all about helping small to medium businesses, help them create more wealth, time and profit. So we have three arms to our business. We have our coaching, which is our education. We do accounting and financial advice. We tend to stick to business owners. However, we do help a broader range of clients with their financial planning and accounting needs as well. But yeah, we've my background, 20 years financial advisor. Very passionate about advice. Have done it my whole career, and have bought businesses, have merged with other companies. We're actively acquiring other businesses as well, and we're trying to build a $100 million company in the next 5 years.
Awesome, ambitious target. I love that. But before we jump into that, let's dive into why Jim is a financial advisor.
Yeah.
What had you do that?
So I started in the advice industry with my mum's financial advisor. She was a single mum, raised me, and met an advisor at a party and said, you should start a budget and start saving money for the future. Fast forward 30 years, my mum retired when she was 55. And I look after my mum and dad's finances now. Started as the receptionist, got told I was terrible, got qualified as an advisor when I was 20, and stumbled my way through for the first few years, learning about superannuation and budgets, and have since, mastered those skills, have a master's in financial planning, and work with, a lot of complex advice now.
What had you be terrible at being a receptionist?
Mate, I was answering the phones, but I couldn't file for my life. So things would end up in the wrong files. Things got posted to the wrong address. The attention to detail initially was pretty lax, but what I learned really quickly from Jason was you fix your mistakes. So even though I remember I posted my first $30,000 check to the wrong place, I quickly jumped in the car, drove over there, picked it up, and retrieved that check. So I learned, that when you make a mistake, you fix it as well. And that was also a good lesson. So he was a good mentor, taught me some important lessons in life.
I feel like you have to go through those moments really, to really, I guess, take in those experiences and learn from them. It's the only way to do it.
100%.
Most certainly. And so then tell us a little bit more, I guess, about the planning, journey, and I guess why you decided to stay in it. I appreciate, your mum had a great experience, but you could have decided to become an accountant or a business coach, or what is it specifically about planning or wealth advisory that you really enjoy?
It's funny. Yeah. I at one point I was a real estate agent. I was a mortgage broker, and I really had to make a decision on what I wanted to do. And I think for me, financial advice just has enough aspects to it that actually allow it to be different in day to day. There's complexities which challenge you, so it's kind of like a bit of a problem solving exercise. So for me, I really like just having something different to do all the time, and I like learning about people's individual circumstances and really trying to help them move forward in their own wealth journey.
And you know what I like about it too is whilst you're researching, I guess, their individual circumstances and the right investment strategies for them, you're also building your own investment strategies, really. So out of interest, how tailored do you find those plans are to those individuals? I appreciate they all are going to be naturally. That's what part of financial advice is. But do you find some of the advice is consistent, like we're investing in property, or we've decided actually we're moving away from property, we're investing in stocks or crypto, be all that, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
How consistent or I guess, similar do you find it can be?
Yeah, good question. So I guess we can all choose to invest in the same things. When you think about asset classes like cash or fixed interest, bonds, property, shares, I guess it's trying to work out exactly where to invest. It can be quite difficult for people. So they generally find that they can get overwhelmed with information. So when you think about trying to select an investment yourself, it actually can be quite daunting. So usually people come to us with an idea, but then they want to help us execute it for them.
Okay, perfect. And so then give us a little bit more about the journey. So naturally, I know a little bit about your experience, but after working with Jason and the like, you then set up your own firm, is that right?
Yeah, so I worked with a couple of other practices after that, and then ended up at Westpac BT, worked there for 7 years, and then started my own practice 2018. And then worked through there till I merged with Aureus.
Perfect. And you were in a business partnership beforehand?
Correct, yep. So me and Chad started Zenith Global together, purchased a couple of practices, and then ended up merging with Aureus following that.
So there's a couple of things that I'd love to get your pointers on, because naturally a lot of our listeners are business owners or aspiring business owners, right? And so a lot of them are going to want to lean on your experience here. Acquisition is not something that comes natural or comfortable to anyone, really, and can often be seen as a really big risk. And there's that age-old debate that, do you go organic growth or do you go inorganic? Give me your thoughts on that. Naturally, you went, for acquisition, which is arguably inorganic, and it's worked for you. So give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so I always wanted to grow pretty quickly, and one of the first practices I worked with Jason, he'd actually purchased a couple of financial planning businesses. So I'd seen it in practice work. Bringing the person into the business is really key. So actually having them involved in that process, and depending on, where they're at in their career, if they're retiring, if you can bring them along and help transition that client base effectively, it works. I thought it would work a lot better. I had done it a couple of ways. The first one I purchased actually didn't work out that well. It was relatively more work than it was worth in a lot of ways. Right. But I learned along the way that you could actually, I thought, look, I'm not going to give up. That was one thing. I wanted to make sure that I was like, okay, that didn't work. What can I do to make it work? And I found a good practice with a really good advisor. And when I took over his office, we decided that we could still work together in a partnership in some respect. And we actually ended up, he's still in the office with me, actually.
All right.
So, yeah.
So he's continued on that journey.
Yeah.
And do you find that's because they buy into the message and what you're trying to build?
Yeah, I think partly. I think there's also an element of, he lives locally. Okay. His business was, he does some aged care consulting still. Okay. So we're just aligned with actually what we were trying to do, but it's not going to work all the time. So I guess it just depends on the structure and what people are looking to achieve when they're exiting.
So what are some of the downfalls that people need to look out for? So naturally, absolutely, I agree. If you're looking at an acquisition, trying to bring someone on board, who's part of the existing business, preferably the principal, who can bring over the relationships. Yeah. Are there certain things that people need to look out for and keep in mind when it comes to that?
Like, are you going to take the staff? So is it a book transfer, or is it actually an acquisition? So are you buying the business as a whole? I've found that they're just different transactions. Okay. So if you're buying the book and just the revenue, it's very different to taking on the responsibility of the business. I've done both, and it just has to be worked out with an accountant and probably a solicitor as well.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Cool. And so then take us through that, I guess, experience. Naturally, you purchased the book, ran the business for a few years, and then you merged with Aureus. Yeah. Tell us why you did that.
Yeah, so I'd been working with Jackson and Aureus under the coaching arm of their business. And after 12 months, they approached me and said, would you like to merge in and run our financial planning business? I jumped at the opportunity because I really wanted to get my teeth into something else. I've just found that I get a bit itchy feet and start to think about what's next. And so I really just I feel like this is a great opportunity for me to start working with SMEs again. That was predominantly their model. So for me, it was just a matter of bringing my vision and theirs together. However, I was going to run that business with my team.
Take us through, if you don't mind, like you mentioned something like working closely with SMEs, right?
Yeah.
Because I find that's one of the things that I've noticed. There aren't too many financial planners that work with SMEs generally.
Yeah.
They either work with the individual, or if they work with an SME business owner, they're more so focused on advice around the personal wealth component and the individual itself, whether they're a PAYG. Tell us how that transition occurred and why it is that you want to focus on SMEs.
Yeah, so for me, I love business. Like I always wanted to run my own business, and I was really excited just by all of the different aspects of it, being a leader, having the opportunity to grow with really no constraints as to where I could take it, and the freedom that came with it as well. So obviously, you say freedom, but we all know that you end up probably working harder for yourself. But I just love helping people navigate that themselves. So a lot of what I've done was like, how do I show people that these things are possible and not make the same mistakes, or at least build the right team around them. So when they do go through these acquisitions, or if they want to sell their business, building wealth, taking out loans, making sure that they structure them correctly, the business purchases, also just any corporate entities that they bring on, or any additional investments that they make sure that not paying any bonuses to the ATO, making sure that no one can come after them later and take that off them if something goes wrong. So for me, it's just about how do you navigate the world of business? And as most of us know, we probably do it and just suck it and see. And this didn't work, or I've learned that way, or if you've got a good mentor, if you're lucky. But I think a lot of us is just work it out on the go. I don't know about you.
100%. Yeah. I think, naturally, I've been in business now for 8 years, and it's always been how do you do this? How do you do that? You kind of need to learn a little bit about everything at all times. And most certainly, I agree with your sentiment around you definitely work harder as a business owner. It's not freedom around when it is that you can work, because you're naturally working for your clients. Yeah. Now, I guess, tell us a little bit more about, the challenges that you see SMEs face when it comes to that financial planning process. What I love about what you guys do is most certainly it needs to be reviewed holistically. I think it's super easy to forget about the accounting piece, forget about the financial wealth piece, but just go, okay, how do we grow a business? And then not necessarily set it up in the right manner or bring along that personal wealth journey as well. So what are some of the, key issues that you see business owners face when it comes to that process?
Yeah, so what I find usually is that they're not even thinking about their personal wealth in a lot of ways. So they're putting everything back into the business. And so they don't pay themselves correctly. They probably spend too much money accumulating things within the business, but maybe not thinking about how to get out of it. So having a really strong plan around how to do that is going to be key. So what are the things, firstly, when do you want to retire? Or when do you think you'll be able to exit the business? Is it something that you can sell? Is a family member going to take it over? All of these questions usually haven't been answered. And I think that although everyone would love their kids to come in and take the business over, maybe that's not what they want. And those conversations might not have happened. So I think it's just sort of how do you transition yourself out of the business as well? Yeah. So if you get to the point where it's an asset, what does that look like at that point? And when you do exit, what's the value of it that's applied to it? Is it going to be enough to retire? If you can't sell it, it's not a product or an asset that can be sold, I think you've got to even think harder about, okay, well, what do I need to get out of this? If it's not profitable, A lot of the times we just kind of ask yourself, did you just buy yourself a job?
Yeah.
Or could you earn more money if you were just, working in a job for somebody else?
And what would you say is a percentage roughly, and you may not know this, but a percentage of business owners that do it for the lifestyle versus those that are trying to build an asset to sell?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think most people are pretty passionate about what they do. And I think they like, everyone that I know that's in business works really hard. So they have lots of complex issues around staff, costs, clients, and really the buck stops with you, right? So there's never really an easy way to just hand things over. I don't see too many businesses where the person sitting at the top when they're building isn't involved in every part of the business.
Yeah.
So, but a true business that someone wants to purchase is exactly that. Something that is completely removed of the owner. So if you think about it, like when people come in and they want to buy something, they don't want to be buying a job. Otherwise, they'll just start their own business. Right. So I think you've got to get to the point where your systems, your processes, profitability all stack up, and someone that walks into that is going to be able to go, we could just plug anyone else into here and it's going to work. So you've got to be ready to sell all the time. But again, not everything has a value to it.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I had a view that most business owners wanted to build a team around them so that, it was a collective success, But I now appreciate that there are some people who want to build a practice versus a business, one that they can just come in and provide a service to their selected number of clients and do well at that, right? But I suspect many potentially have the desire to want to build a business, but not necessarily the know-how, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
At what level do you think it becomes a possibility? Because I'm sure there are some people listening who are solopreneurs. They're like, oh, Jim, thanks for the advice, but I've got no time. I've got no time, no money. How is it that I'm going to hire someone to remove me from the business?
Yeah, I see that too. I've always thought you go faster with other people. But when I've had conversations about what I'm doing to colleagues, friends, they look at what I'm doing and they think I'm crazy. Because they're like, how do you manage a business, staff, your life, and everything in between? For me, it's like I want to get to the point where I can eventually, if I want to, sell out. I've got no plans to sell, but I also don't want to be thinking I could have tried something and didn't have a go at it as well. So I've built teams. I've built offshore teams. We've got currently about 40 people in the group now. And if we want to scale it to the size, like, you can't do it on your own. You need a leadership team. You need people that you can trust to do the job. And so there is a real skill in letting go at some point as well. I think that was what I initially found when I merged with Aureus. I was very hands-on, practice, and then like the mindset had to shift of like, this is now going to be bigger. And I had multiple advisors, and I've got a team of 12, including myself, in this business, in my part of the division of the business. So I was like, I need to get better at leadership. I need to understand, how the profit works. I need to understand how many clients we need. I need to understand when we're going to hire new people. And so there was a real transition across. And look, I've got the support of other people. So we run a coaching business. So we coach other businesses to do this stuff. So it really helps. Yeah. My business partner, Jackson, we work really closely together on ideas. And so we're constantly talking about what we want to try and achieve. And we set goals and we set KPIs for ourselves within the business. So we've actually got a system, a process around how we do this to get to that next level as well.
That was literally going to be my next question. What steps would you suggest for a small business owner so that they can start to get on that process? Naturally, I presume some of that's going to be get some coaching.
And get
it
someone
helps.
it was one of the first things I did.
Yeah.
As soon as I had money, I was like, I want to go to coach.
And what do you think? What do you think it is about a coach that moves the dial for you?
I think it gets you out of your own way. gets you to focus on the things that you should be doing next. So I think in business, we have this problem with doing the thing that we know we need to do. And we do all the fun stuff, and the hard stuff is like, because we're so busy and time is so thin, it's like you just get pulled away constantly from the thing that you need to do. But when somebody says, you just need to do this one thing, you've got like that laser focus on it, you'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I was going to add to that is you don't know what you don't know. And it's a lonely journey if it's just you thinking about what it is that you got to do next. And being able to have that guidance, that partnership, the ability to check in and have someone say, look, we've done this before. This is where you should go next. This is what you should be focusing on. Because I completely agree. Time is finite. And I think anyone listening back at home who is a solopreneur really needs to think about where they can invest their time. And there are so many competing interests when it comes to running a business, as you would know.
Yeah.
Servicing your clients, marketing your business, running your finances, all of that is quite hard to juggle.
Yeah.
You invest too much in one area, the other two areas are falling behind. And so naturally, I think partnering with a business coach makes absolute sense. So tell us a little bit about, I guess, what it is that Aureus offers and how it is that the three business areas fit together. Because naturally, you might look at this and go, okay, well, where does a client come in through to us? Yes, they're an SME, I get it, but do they start off as an accounting client, then a financial planning client, and a coaching client, or is it vice versa? How does that work?
Yeah, so we usually focus on the priority. Look, people come to us, sometimes they've got a coach, sometimes they've got an accountant, sometimes they've got an accountant, sometimes they've got an advisor. Like, we're not there to stop people working with their other professionals. Like, we want to work with their team. What we find is by having all three services, we can look at the numbers, understand what the profit targets are, and then reverse engineer the income target. So when people come to me, most of my clients, and this is probably the real difference in the advice that I'm providing, is there's profit in the business and it's sitting there and it's being underutilized or not utilized at all. And so I'll have a conversation with them and say, look, we know that there's profit coming through the business. Where is that going now? What income should you be paying yourself? We see a lot of people that don't pay themselves properly. So they'll get advice from their accountant, minimize tax, pay yourself less. And I'm like, look, that's great until you want to go and buy a property and you need servicing, and the bank's going to look at it and go, you know what, you actually need to pay yourself double that. You got to pay for it. Cash flow, like, where's it going to come from? So it's like you've got all these great ideas of things that you want to do, but you don't have the money to do it. And look, we're all about lifestyle as well. So it's a lot of the time I see business owners that haven't had a holiday in 2-3 years. I'm like, why not? Oh, we haven't prioritized. All right, well, let's set the money aside for it. Your partner's going to love you for this. Your kids are going to love you for this. Make the experiences, make the time. So we focus on profit, time, are the two key areas. And wealth, sorry. So if we can line all of those things up together, I think that people become happier and they actually start enjoying what they're doing. So we talk about enjoy the journey in a lot of ways.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mate, I love that. I mean, for me, I've always sought after the equation. I call it the equation. The equation for me is how much time should I put into my personal life versus my business life? How much time do I put into business development versus finance and servicing clients? How much time do I put into the gym and all that sort of stuff, right? Super hard to get your head around. How much time do I go on holidays? Now, my wife and I have just kind of said, look, every 3 months, every quarter, we'll do a trip. And that, I find, me personally, that is the best way for me to recharge, become creative. And I think that's probably what people miss out on. They go, well, I just got to keep running at that wall. Keep running at that wall. The harder I run, the further I'll go. But really what happens is they just keep butting up against the wall. And I think that's what you get from a business coach for sure.
Yeah.
You know, the ability to check in, get actually what I'm missing is the foresight, the thought about how it is that I can be better, you know, that 1% better. What I was going to say, though, it's interesting, though, I recently had this conversation where you mentioned preparing for debt. As a business owner, I feel like that's the biggest challenge. If you aren't talking to your accountant, your financial planner, and your business coach at the same time, the biggest challenge is it's going to take you 2 years to get your financials ready to borrow to buy a house. 2 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Long time in your life.
Yeah, it is.
Which absolutely makes sense for you to...
Yeah, exactly. If you think about like ultimately where you want to be, the end goal, you can reverse engineer that, but it's difficult.
So talk to me about reverse engineering, right? I'm going to be cheeky here.
Yeah.
100 mil is the target, the vision for the future. Let's reverse engineer that. What are the goals? Like, why 100 mil?
Look, we're talking valuation.
Okay.
So looking at certain enterprises, they will have a valuation based on that turnover. We are in the process of rolling up into one business. So we've actually, the way that we've been able to do this is by rolling in other businesses under the group. But eventually we want to have it all under the one banner. And then we want to have the ability for other people to come in and invest. So to be able to do that, we've got creating like an employee share scheme, and then eventually the ability to, issue other shares effectively, so other leaders can come in and buy as well, or other people that want to invest in the business. But we need to create obviously enough revenue to do that. We've got a sales marketing team that work tirelessly to try and create that. And it's a bit of a work in progress. But we need to probably get it up to about 10 mil rev.
10 mil rev, okay.
And we've got a bit of a way to go.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
No, that's
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
5 years, I think we can do that.
So tell me why though, right? Because it's more than just money, isn't it? Sure, everyone wants to make money. And I say this because we're having the conversation around scaling, right? Not everyone wants to scale their business. Some people are happy to be a practice, but getting there faster, bringing more people. We've spoken about that, but why? Why does 100 mil make sense?
You get the option to decide whether or not you want to list at that point. Would probably be one thing. Whether or not we do that, like there's a lot of other private equity businesses that will come in and look at businesses now as well. For us, it's just creating the business model that allows us to also elevate ourselves. So we've got all our own targets at the leadership level. We all want to create, and we've come up with a formula. You might like this actually. Nice. $4 million in personal wealth outside of your home, working 44 weeks of the year and generating $400,000 of income. So we call it the power of four. Okay. Now everyone's going to have their own. So when we talk to our coaching clients and business clients, we say, well, what's your power of four effectively? Like, how are you going to be able to create the type of wealth that you need? Now, obviously you could have more than that. But we think that is a good number to be able to get your time, profit, and your lifestyle all right in one place.
So just to clarify, 4 mil of private
investable assets outside of your home.
Outside of your home. So that could be stocks, it could be investment properties. Yep. Okay.
Net.
What's the next part?
Net. Working 44 weeks of the year.
Okay.
So the holidays.
Yep. 6 weeks holidays.
Yeah.
8 weeks.
That's my math. 8 weeks, yeah. So that's like you said, 2 weeks a quarter.
Yeah. Cool.
So we live by that as well. So we try and focus to have those. Gets more difficult when you got more people.
Yeah.
However, we make sure that everyone in our business has the ability to do that.
Yeah.
And $400,000 worth of income.
Okay. Cool.
Because we think that on top of that, like this is just for your personal needs. Anything on top of that, go back into investing into other businesses and things like that. So what we'll probably end up doing is once we've created all of our own personal wealth targets, at that point, we don't feel like we need any more money and we've met all our own personal needs. Everything else is, cream.
Yeah, great. Awesome. And I guess naturally that's what adjusts that valuation and the ultimate goal for the business being, if we look at our equation or our formula and the amount of people within our business, this is kind of where it needs to be for us to get there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think we'll also, our ultimate goal is to make our roles redundant. Create a board, work on the board.
Got it.
So what do you need to do? And this is, I think, the mindset shift is, for most people, they hold on to what they've got. and they need to try and make themselves important within the role. We're trying to make ourselves redundant in the roles that we have. So that doesn't mean that you can't be an advisor or you can't be involved in the business and the decision, but ultimately I don't want to be doing the day-to-day things anymore at some point in the future.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to everyone having different goals as well, right? We kind of spoke about that earlier. Some people want to do that for forever. You know, they want to be in that practice forever. Some people want to be in a position where they create something larger than themselves, I guess. That's very much what it's about, right?
And I'm not fully committed to one way or the other. So I love advice. So I'm also like very much involved in providing advice to clients. And I've had decisions that I've made where I could have done other things, and it's always led me back to financial advice. So in saying like, look, I eventually want to get out of it, at some stage I might want to lean back into it.
Yeah.
And even though like I might have met all my own personal wealth targets and everything's there, like I might just be happy to manage a parcel of clients and just keep working with them individually.
Yeah.
And so it's really, it's pretty fluid, I guess. Like there's no reason why you need to pick one over the other. I think that there'll be opportunities to be in leadership roles and there'll be opportunities to be in practice roles. And I think that both of them are really important. I think you see business owners where they finally get to the point where they realize they need other people to do the things that they can't do, and leaning into that, or just actually going, you know, this is great to have an operations manager or someone to do HR or someone to do your socials. You know what I mean? Whatever. Like you're not going to be good at everything.
Yeah.
So focus on what you are good at and what you like.
I love that. So then if we take it back, you know, what would you say was the number one success factor for you in your business, in your life?
I took the risk. And a lot of people around you, friends, family, might try and talk you out of things. I always go with my gut and I make things work. I think I'm pretty resilient. So when things kind of start to seem like they're too hard, I'll lean into it even harder. For me, when I think that I usually know when things are going to get difficult. I've got this perception where like this is going to be a tough period, like pull back in other areas and focus in on what I need to do. So when I bought a couple of practices, I was like, I figured this would be about a 2-year transition. Merging with Aureus, similar type of number, and pretty much bang on 2 years to fully integrate. Awesome. First 12 months is just working out, meeting clients, understanding the business, and just really bedding it into what you do. And then it's from that point in time, it's like making sure that it grows.
And out of interest now, I don't want to forget about the taking the risk component because I think there's so much we could chat about there. But how have you found clients have responded to the rebrand and the consolidation of services? Have you found they love the approach that, you know, it's a one-stop financial shop?
People hate change. That's my usual, what I've noticed is staff, clients, people don't like big changes. They fear for what they don't know. And you have to reassure people that things are going to be as good, if not better. So that's really about you as a leader leaning in and saying, look, this is how it's going to work. This is what I'm expecting to see happen. And then you got to prove that, that it's going to be better for these people. We've lost staff and clients in mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
So.
And then shines through your resilience, I guess, because naturally I presume that'd be very challenging.
Yeah, it's tough because it's, if things don't initially seem like they're working, you question your initial decision, right?
Yeah.
And I've had those moments. I was like, why did I do this? I don't know why I did this, But through just day after day, just showing up, doing the same thing, the people that are still there can see the difference, can see the benefits. And I'm lucky that I've got good staff that have stuck around through the journey that I hope will be with me forever. I've promoted into leadership roles and will continue to grow together. And clients where we can offer them additional services and hopefully just a better service overall.
And let's touch on leadership, if you don't mind, really quickly. For me, I heard this analogy the other day, and I love it. Running a business is like pioneering a ship. You're the captain on the ship, and the business is going in one direction, and you've really got to make sure you're pointing the ship in the right direction. Some people might jump off the ship. The ship might take a bit of damage at times. There might be some rough seas that you've got to get through, but you've got to keep pioneering that ship and pointing it in the right direction. And that's leadership for me.
Yeah.
And I'd have to say, from what I'm hearing from your experience, the work that you put in developing your leadership skills prior has definitely geared you up for success in your recent, I guess.
Yeah, like it was go from 1 or 2 people to 12, and it's got the potential to, double or triple that again. What I've realized is that the leadership side of it it's just a different thing altogether. Like you can be a great practitioner, great advisor, great, what you do, but to be a great leader, it takes a whole bunch of other skill sets. There's plenty of courses out there. There's plenty of people, like I've got a leadership coach. I've had, business coaches. I do a lot of learning myself. So I think if you want to try and get better at something, for me, it's I want to do it quickly. So I generally want to get the best people I can find to help me do that as well. So I've been lucky to have a pretty good network of people that, opened up doors to different things at the right time. And I'll take my staff through similar journey as well, so they can upskill along the way as well.
Yeah, I also heard this thing that you can either do it yourself and do it slowly, or you can pay for it and do it really quickly. I think the key to that is getting the right advice. So again, another tip off for advice, I guess. What's a key issue of today's business world that you think needs changing?
Key issue. I think we've seen so much change in the last 5 years. You can't do the same thing and expect the same results. I think that the landscape is changing constantly in business and just the way that the world works. And you've got to be prepared to change with that. I think the old ways of doing things will be replaced. And if you're not kind of on the journey to change, I think that you can get left behind. So I suppose having a bit of an open mind about, taking advice again from other people, but I think also your own mindset needs to be open to learning.
Perfect. I think being closed-minded can only lead in one result, really, particularly how quickly the world is changing. So I completely agree with that. And out of interest, I'm in the game of business risks. Out of interest, are there any key business risks that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, or you deal with your clients as well that you talk through? What are some key business risks that you go through?
Yeah, so there are currently looking at buy-sell agreements, partnerships, shareholders agreements when things don't work. Like having a really good, and these are things that I've learned along the way, and luckily having good lawyers and accountants around me as well to actually structure those things. Also, just having a good accountant, understanding the numbers, bookkeeper, you need a good team of people around you, and you almost need them to be working together. So we find that we end up, as the advisor, we tend to be the one that sort of managers or the project manager around all of those things. You need to have the right people in the right seat. I've seen people come unstuck where they have unreconciled transactions from bookkeeping, the wrong structures with accounting, the wrong loans with mortgages. purchased investments through the wrong structure. Like I had a guy that bought a house through a family trust. It was just, and now he's got to pay capital gains tax on his own house. Like just the wrong advice, and then the impacts of that down the track can be so big. And, you know, we're talking about big assets, you know, millions of dollars, and then stamp duty tax. You know, you don't want those kind of problems popping up a lot. So I think when you're making the decisions, you need to weigh up the cost of getting someone else to look at it and get the right person versus trying to do it yourself and then wearing the, you know, the possible ramifications at the back end of it.
Talking about structures as well, you know, my wife and I just started a family. So
congrats.
Thank you. But one of those conversations that we've recently been having is succession planning.
Yeah.
And as you would know, and this is for the listeners at home, the structures you set up as a single household will look very different once you've got a family. And when you think about succession planning, that really needs to be factored into things. So again, another point around advice.
Yeah, big conversation for me. Legacy, what it looks like. One of our books, The Family Vault, talks a lot about potentially running your legacy like a family office. So we know that the billionaires of the world all run their family offices and have a team of people that, you know, advise them. But we think we play in this space with the SME where they'll potentially get to maybe 10, 20, 30 mil, but don't want to necessarily go down the path of working with these bigger companies that charge sometimes millions of dollars to work with.
What are those companies you're talking
about? So family offices.
Okay, yeah.
There's a few of them. I won't say them because it's bloody advertising for them. But I think that what we've found is that they don't offer really good advice, or they don't offer a lot of advice. It's usually just investment, but it's not a lot of the planning around it.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to get to your position where you can sell your business, you want it to be looked after by the next generation. You need to set a set of rules of how they're going to manage that money.
Yeah.
You need to educate them about it because we don't teach this stuff in school. So what happens is we see our family, we want the best for them. So you want the best for your kids. And so hopefully your family has less stress than the previous generation, right? But what happens is when they get that, you go on the nice holidays, you have all the good things, maybe they're not going to have the same lessons that you had to build that wealth as a business owner. So I think, how do you instill that into the next generation? How do you then instill that into their kids? And so I think if you set a really good framework around this, you can create, you know, generational wealth, which is, I think, of what a lot of people talk about, but they don't have a structure for it.
And I feel like there's so much that we could tap into when it comes to, you know, how do you structure money mindset when you're dealing with the generation to come? But I want to take a step back just to be very clear on what a buy-sell agreement is for people. Can you sort of like dumb it down a little bit? Because I've spoken to plenty of business owners who don't know the relevance of a shareholders agreement, don't know that you can get a buy-sell agreement, and that they often don't know what's included within it. So if you can just sort of high-level overview and summary as to obviously the benefits of it, but what is it?
Great. Yeah. So you go into partnership with someone and everything starts off amazing. Great goals, aligned values, everyone's on the same page. You fast forward 5 years and you might have competing, ideas or whatever, and then you decide to break up in business. Or even worse, one of them dies. And this happens all the time, right? So you go, okay, what are the documentations that we can rely on to now navigate the transaction of exiting person from the business? Without a shareholders agreement, you can't do that. If it's a 50-50 agreement, it means now that you have a new business partner and it's the family's estate that is going to come in and effectively be your business partner. So that could be your business partner's wife or husband or kids. And now you've got them to deal with. Now, can they do the same job as the other person? Maybe not. Do you want them in the business? Probably not. So how do you navigate buying them out of the business? A buy-sell agreement gives you the actual process of that, evaluation methodology, potentially having something also to fund that transaction.
And that could be either an insurance policy, whatever that might be.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. And, sort of to add to that too, everyone sort of thinks about, okay, what if your business partner dies? But what if their whole family dies when they're on a holiday?
Yeah.
That's pretty scary because often either they haven't thought about succession planning, they don't have a will, which there's a large percentage of Australians who don't have a will.
Yeah.
What happens then? I guess
it's again like the beneficiaries of the estate will be the ones that actually need to deal with it. So it can be complicated and it can all be avoided. So again, if it's something that you are worried about, do it when you have everyone on the same page and you're not in a dispute, because it's really difficult at that point.
And then I was just going to quickly touch on family office, just to dumb it down. Running your own affairs like a family office is like pretending you are an investment company, an investment business. You manage a fund and you are making calls on where to invest.
To be honest, it's just a philosophy around investing, and who's involved in making those decisions. You can run a pseudo family office just with your family and say, hey, look, if this happens, this is what I want to happen to the money. It might go into something like a testamentary trust, and then it can be managed through there. So it's just an overlay of some rules and regulations to say, hey, if you are the custodian of this money, this is how I'd expect you to manage it. And hopefully just set them up with some basic principles so that they understand how to manage money, really.
Perfect.
That's education.
Lastly, I guess just before, you briefly touched on, I guess, money mindset to some degree around the future generations. How is it that you see that best being passed down to future generations? Because it's a large conversation.
I think early on. So I think that your kids are most likely not getting taught this stuff in school. I know that I had learnt it all from mentors and people around me when I was in the industry. Luckily, I did have my mum that was pretty savvy financially, so we talked about money openly at like the dinner table. But I think having your own investments can help, so actually setting your kids up with a small investment account or showing them how investments operate. So just giving them some knowledge. We've got a lot of education online that we provide, and books and stuff where we try and help people navigate that as well.
And I appreciate this is probably pushing the remit of what a financial advisor might do, but when you say talking about money at the dinner table, so many questions can come up, right? People might say, okay, well, do you share the struggles that you're going through, or do you keep it very positive? Talk to me about what your perception of that is, because there's the flip side, right? You can either keep it way too positive and not being real, and the future generation don't get clear on what can happen, or you're way too negative and their relationship with money is a negative one.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one to tell people how to do it. Personally, I think having a positive relationship with money is the first place. It should be good, and it shouldn't be taboo. So we should be able to talk about it openly and honestly. The struggles should be clear. I think that yes, things can go wrong, and this is what we did when it went wrong, and this is how we got out of it. I think that it's worthwhile talking about that because I think that I've seen older generations that have missed opportunities because they've been burnt once, never go back. And that's pretty common. I think people will talk to you about that. And so that somebody that's had a bad experience, everyone else's fault, never taken responsibility, never gone and invested again. Like that's probably the wrong mindset. So how do you get back into that positive, like, what, maybe it was just a bad experience and, next one's going to be better.
And I say that because naturally business owners can often deal with cash flow issues, right? And that can be foreseen by anyone as either a dramatic thing or just a temporary thing, right? And depending on how we portray that to the next generation is super important. Something I'm interested in because I now get the significance. Any little thing that I say can make an impact. So we've created some operating rules in business, and we try to get clients personally to do that themselves.
So having the buffer, the war chest, we talk about, making sure that you've got surplus, like run your life like a business, where there's always a profit and you know where you're spending your money. That's a really key element. And then invest everything else.
I think it brings it back to the methodology of running a family office, not just having one account and then seeing a whole bunch of money in there and going, great, we've got plenty of money.
And you can decide the level of risk, right? Everyone's going to be different there. So there's not like, it's just like, it has to be balls to the wall. Like you can have money invested in things that are defensive in nature. So you don't have to be big risk taker and still invest money.
So to wrap things up, what's your vision for the future, both for Jim personally and Aureus as well?
Personally, look, I'm just going to keep learning and building the business. I'm really focused on taking it to my advice business to the next level. I want to be one of the best in the country, if not the best. I think Aureus is going to continue to help more and more business owners as they realize that they need support, and we're here to do it.
Awesome. Well, Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. There's been plenty of key takeaways I would suggest for people listening who are going to be able to, action on those themselves. I know there are plenty of free resources, which you've got some books that you've mentioned, and people can reach out. So do you want to give us a little plug on those books and then how they can reach out to you?
Yeah, so if you go to www.wealthhealthcheck.com.au, we have a 40-point scorecard for business owners to see how they're tracking. Free books, resources, tools, all included. We run quarterly events live and online. Feel free to join us for any of those. And yeah, just reach out if you've got questions. You can look at Jackson's podcast, Financial Freedom, as well. So check him out, Jackson Milan.
Awesome. Jim, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Cheers.
Socius, thank you for joining us today. Please hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed this episode. And if you'd like to be part of the Socius community, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay in touch. Cheers.